this series of short films on YouTube, we're following farm business Tegethoff Agrar throughout the farming year. In part 1, at the end of March, we introduced you to the spring work on this family farm and took a closer look at the tillage, sugar beet sowing and fertilisation work. Following on seamlessly from that episode, our main aim with part 2 is to show you the grain harvest. However, we're starting this video at the end of May. The maize crop has been in the ground for around 6 weeks and has germinated well. Since maize plants only require high volumes of nitrogen at a later growth stage, it makes sense to meet this requirement by using digestate or slurry at the appropriate time. This is a service that Tegethoff contracts out to Schafmeister Agrar agricultural contractors. The rest of the field work they'll be carrying out over the coming weeks also focuses on crop maintenance. This 18-row cultivator from Schmotzer is new. One of the main places they use it is on the sugar beet fields. The fields are cultivated either once or twice during the growth stage, as required, before row covering to remove orich and bolters from the crop and to stimulate mineralization. The sunflower crop is cultivated in 12 rows. From 2023 onwards, they plan to manage this crop without using any herbicides at all. We've now reached the end of July, and the 2022 grain harvest is already well underway. The team uses the mornings to maintain and carry out any necessary repair work on the combines at the company's machinery depot in Letowitz. The 4 Claas Lexions were built in 2014 and 2015, so they already have quite a few hectares under their belts. That being said, the combines are well maintained and reliable. Replacing wearing parts, such as the blades on the straw chopper in this case, is a routine operation. The preparations are a team effort, and everyone mucks in. Burkhard Tegethoff built up the farm business and has spent his fair share of hours on the combine. This year, his youngest son Fabian is driving one of the Lexions for the first time. His oldest son Philipp is driving one too, as he has for the past few years. Before the combines get started on the wheat in the late morning, we use the time to look at the stubble cultivation work. The farm uses a Köckerling Rebell, as well as several other implements for this. Bought in 2015, it was one of the first 12.5 metre compact disc harrows to be supplied by this farm machinery manufacturer from Eastern Westphalia at the time. The gigantic implement is usually pulled by a Fendt 1050 Vario. Each year, the Rebell cultivates around 2,500 hectares of farmland at Tegethoff Agrar. It's their preferred machine for carrying out the first pass of stubble mulching, particularly on canola. It also powers through wheat stubble at a shallow depth and at full width, encouraging volunteer cereals and weed seeds to germinate. In very dry locations, it is used to disrupt the capillary action, or water flow, to retain moisture in the soil. The implement's 98 serrated discs, each mounted individually on leaf springs, have a diameter of 510 millimeters. The working direction is diagonal to the combining or sowing direction. This improves the distribution of the crop residues on the field. The trailing double STS roller reconsolidates the germination layer. The Rebell comes in various models, from 3 meters upwards. We first met team member Uwe back in spring. He treats the Fendt 1050 Vario with the same care and attention as his own living room. As we reported in part 1 of this series, the plan was to use 2 of these large tractors from the most recent generation for the stubble cultivation work. Unfortunately, the delivery was a little delayed. The edges of the fields are maintained twice a year. Once at the beginning of June to prevent the weeds around the edges of the fields from germinating, and once during the post-harvest mulching. The aim is to prevent weeds on the edges of the field from penetrating the field or being picked up by the combine during harvesting. This enables savings to be made up front on plant protection measures. This 33-hectare field of wheat stubble lies directly alongside the River Saale. The river and its surroundings are part of the Lower Saale Valley Nature Reserve. For Tegethoff Agrar, this means they have to plan their crops and fieldwork very carefully. Around 120 hectares of the farm's land is currently uncultivated or set-aside land. In the medium term, the farm is actually on track to surpass the goal of 4% mandated by politicians. 20 hectares are allocated to wildflower strips and verges on the edges of the fields. The flower mixtures used are tailored to the location and in some cases even tailored to suit small game. The new A143 motorway will bring about changes to the landscape on a larger scale. Tegethoff Agrar will lose several hectares of productive arable land as a result. This is partially due to the route construction itself and partially due to the compensatory measures such as converting arable land into extensive grassland. A lot of large fields will be chopped up and divided into multiple smaller fields. The fields are being purchased by the motorway company at the regular local prices, meaning the farm business is unable to benefit financially from the new motorway construction. Preparations are now complete at the Letowitz site, and the harvesting team is on the move. The combines usually work in 2 teams on different fields. This approach was particularly necessary this year because the wheat and canola matured at the same time. That said, we're lucky that we get to see all 4 Claas Lexions on one field today. The fields that Tegethoff Agrar farms cover between 1 and 135 hectares each. This wheat field measures a hefty 69 hectares. With these 4 machines alone, they can combine enough wheat per hour to produce enough flour for over 4 million bread rolls. That's enough to feed the population of a small town for several days. They tackled the harvest here without using grain carts. Depending on the distance between the farmyard and the field, 1 to 2 tandem dumpers are required per combine. Before the grain is sold and processed, they transport it to their own grain store. The tractor and trailer combinations are weighed on a weighbridge as they arrive and leave. In some cases, they also take retained samples. This storage facility was built in 2010 and can hold around 8,000 tons of grain. An additional 500 tons can be stored in the adjacent drying silo and a further 3,000 tons at the equipment yard. This means that depending on the yield, the farm business can put around 3/4 of its harvest into storage on its own premises. A telehandler is used to push the harvested material into these underfloor ventilated bunkers, where it is stored in piles up to 4 meters high. On our way back to the harvesting team, we pass the second tillage implement that they use for stubble cultivation. As you can see, they're using the Köckerling all-rounder flatline we showed you in part 1. Team member Matthias is cultivating one of the most challenging fields on the farm. The height difference between the headlands is over 30 meters. Tegethoff Agrar farms over 3,000 hectares to the northwest of Halle. Covering 1,200 hectares, wheat takes up a major share of the crop rotation. After a few extreme years in 2018, 2019 and 2020, the yields finally improved a little this year. The business is attempting to counteract the challenging climate conditions in Germany's central dry zone as well as it can by growing varieties with healthy leaves and enhanced drought resistance, and by balancing out their crop rotations. On the 20 to 25 combining days that are planned in for the grain harvest, depending on the weather, the entire team is working at full capacity. Even Marion Tegethoff picks up some of the slack from her husband and sons by taking care of many of the organisational issues in the background. Two harvest workers help out with logistics, and the business is already accepting applications by email for the next season. Tim is in his second year of training to become a farmer. Tegethoff Agrar offers 2 apprenticeship positions in this subject area. They're also happy to receive applications for these positions via the contact form on their website. In part 3 of our short film series, we'll take a look at the sugar beet harvest and winter crop sowing activities on the farm. For more information on Tegethoff Agrar and its cash crops, feel free to visit the company website or follow the family on Instagram.